We essentially put the greed on hold for a little while. We stopped the airlines from doing the very worst, laying everyone off, allowing the entire system to crumble. That was really only freezing an imperfect system that already existed. We have to get back now to fixing it.
Chaos has escalated at airports across the country.
Record number of Americans are on the move despite the pandemic aftershock and staffing shortages.
So we have an opportunity right now to set some expectations. Not $1 should go in stock buybacks. Not $1 should go in increasing executive pay until they fix the operational issues that are out there, until they staff the airlines with enough people to serve the demand of the American public.
The coronavirus effect has been fast and devastating for the airlines.
In March of 2020, the airline industry is about to collapse. 97% of the demand fell overnight. If we don't step in right away and make sure that the paychecks can continue for the people on the front lines, the airlines will not be able to bounce back.
The airline industry alone seeking a $50 billion bailout. But should these companies get relief with no strings attached?
We knew, actually, that in this crisis, we could take control and we could set the terms for how things were going to work.
We can no longer have corporate bailouts. We need relief packages that are for the frontline workers. For the first time in history, we'll be telling corporations how to spend that money.
And we put together a plan that was called the Payroll Support Plan. Any money that came from the federal government could only go to keeping workers in their jobs, to paying our paychecks, contributions to our health care. We had to ban stock buybacks and cap their executive compensation so that we could change their behavior.
The industry as a whole has been dinged a couple of times because of the amount of cash they spent on buybacks over the decade.
Spent all that money, and how did they pay for it? They paid for it with more cuts from workers, making us work harder for less, even though they were making billions in profits.
Only to receive billions in aid when an emergency came along. Longer term, will the industry look at buybacks differently?
I think Southwest is a great example of where it worked. When we did use buybacks, we used them appropriately.
A stock buyback is essentially giving money to the shareholders to inflate the share price. They're taking profits out of the company, profits that are generated by the workers on the front lines, by the way. They're not investing that, again, in the infrastructure of the company. And they're not investing in the frontline workers to have enough staff and to be able to respond to the demand. Instead, those stock buybacks inflate the stock price, not because the business is doing well. And it incentivizes investors to invest more because they're gonna take more of the profit out of the company. That's all stock buybacks are. They're complete and total bullshit.
Will you guarantee that the money, the billions, the tens of billions of dollars that's going to go to these industries will not go to executive bonuses or to more stock buybacks?
It takes many people in this case to tango. But as far as I'm concerned, that conditions like that would be okay with me.
Remember that Mitch McConnell was in charge of the Senate. Donald Trump was in the White House. And the only way that we got this through is because we demanded it with 80% union and got the airlines to agree to our framework. And then we went together and got bipartisan support for that.
Airline executives did not get the bailout that they wanted from the American taxpayer. The airlines got the version of assistance that Sara Nelson wanted them to get.
It was one of the most successful programs of COVID relief. More of the money, of this COVID relief money, went to people on the front lines than any other program, by twice at least. Congress needs to take a hard look at what we were able to accomplish with banning the stock buybacks and dividends for the short period of time and how that changed some of the behavior. They actually were forced to work on the business. They were forced to work on the operation. How much worse is it going to get when it goes away, when that constraint goes away? Because they will absolutely argue that in order to compete, they're going to have to promise that there will be stock buybacks.
Is there any increased emphasis or increased thought on buyback when the restrictions come off? We've got a responsibility to all constituencies, and importantly to our owners. Our owners shouldn't be forgotten about, and we didn't forget about them during the pandemic.
When the reality is that we have put off major negotiations for an entire workforce for 700,000 people in the United States that work in aviation directly for the airlines, and another 1 million people who work at the airports. And the very first thing they should be doing is investing in their workforce. We play a really critical role in holding them accountable. And that's why you see airline workers out on the picket line right now. Now that things are getting back to normal, demand is coming back, and people are not being served the way they would like to be, there's no reason that those controls should go away. And they should stay focused on running an operation that works.